Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of AoS Close-Ups. This week we'll take a look at one of Tzeentch's favorite cabal of sorcerers and Archeon's movers of fate, the Gaunt Summoners. We'll explore their background, their rules, and whether they're too much for the tabletop. Originating from the Crystal Labyrinth deep within Tzeentch's lands in the realm of chaos, the Gaunt Summoners are powerful demon sorcerers. These vile abominations rule over maze-like fortresses that connect the mortal realms to the realm of chaos, the most formidable of these bastions being called the Whisperfane. Only 9 of these robed, faceless creatures exist at any one time, and they rarely cooperate. And why should they? A single Gaunt Summoner can change the tide of a battle completely. Archeon is the only one, save Tzeentch himself, who knows each summoner's true name. Through this knowledge, Archeon stole each of their souls and now subjugates them. They are helplessly devoted to his every whim. The Gaunt Summoners have been responsible for some of the most horrifying atrocities committed during the Age of Chaos. The Tyrant of Eyes corrupted a river in the kingdom of Vashj so that any who looked into it were possessed by demons, eventually tearing the kingdom down from within. In the lands of Yith, a Gaunt Summoner filled the skies with multi-hued faces that spat mutating fire below, and after a year the people of the lands had been conjoined into revulsive, nightmarish demon birds. And finally, in a rare sight, all 9 summoners united at the 8 points to call forth a millions-strong horde of demons to serve Archeon. As of now, only 3 of the 9 are known to us: the Tyrant of Eyes, the Tongueless Lord, and the Watcher King. Each is armed with an arcane tome in one hand, a warp-tongue blade in the other, and still yet a third grasping an enchanted chainstaff. Gaunt Summoners often glide into battle aloft discs of Tzeentch, invoking incantations to incinerate their foes with warp fire, mutating them into quivering masses of flesh, or just overwhelming their armies with summoned hordes of demons. In addition to existing as one of the many weapons for Archeon, Gaunt Summoners also interpret the Fates in order to best assist him in bringing his plans into fruition. However, the Fates are manifold and shrouded by the treacherous words of many other demons, so guiding this plan into being is far from certain. So let's jump into the stats. Now, Gaunt Summoners are one of the fastest units out there with a 16-inch fly move. However, for a mounted hero, they are fairly weak with only 5 wounds, and he gets a 6+ armor save against monsters and anything else that flies. Now, against everything else, he does get a boosted save up to a 4+. But again, this is just not very tough considering he is a hero and he is technically mounted on something. Usually you get a boost to your wounds or your armor save, probably both. Now finally, they have a high bravery value of 8, which is going to be useful in some situational circumstances. Now, summoners, like most wizards, get a ranged attack thanks to his chainstaff. It's really similar to a lot of other staff attacks. It has an 18-inch range, it's only one attack, hits on a 3+, has a 50-50 chance to wound, there's no rend, and the damage is a random D3. Now, he's no monster in combat either. His warp-tongue blade only gives him a single attack, and it has the same hit, wound, and rend stats as his chainstaff. However, this one attack does have a chance to do the extraordinary, as any model that fails a save will have to take a test against their bravery using 2 dice. If the total of those 2 dice is greater than their bravery stat, then the model is just outright slain. So there is potential there to do the unbelievable, but again, it's not that great of an attack. Finally, the Disc of Tzeentch itself has a random amount of attacks. It hits and wounds on a coin flip, and overall, this model in total is just not a shooting or close combat powerhouse. Now, the Warp-Tongue Blade is its deadliest weapon, but it's more of a weapon to dissuade you from charging him than something that's actually going to pull something off. Now, anytime a Gaunt Summoner is within 9 inches of a realm gate, at the beginning of its movement phase, it can summon a unit of demons. They must be placed within 6 inches of the realm gate, but 9 inches away from any enemy models. The new unit counts as having moved in the movement phase. Now, I honestly don't know what to think about this ability because even though it's plainly written, I don't understand it a lot. Like, it doesn't have a lot of its intent written, I guess you would say. As I'm trying to say, there isn't an explicit rule called summoning in the rule book, in the 4 pages. But we all know that a lot of the magic spells that are related to summoning demons are called summon, you know, X, Y, or Z. So I guess if we were to use our inductive logic, this is probably something that means you can cast a spell that summons a demon at the beginning of the movement phase. When we combine this with its natural ability for the summoner to cast 2 spells already, it does look like you can cast 3 spells as long as you're near the realm gate, and that 3rd spell is just cast in a different phase. Now, this is just my guess, however, and there's nothing else in the rules that, or the war scroll itself, that explains what it means to summon a unit. So it could mean something completely different. You could just be putting a unit into play, but it's really hard to tell because I don't really know what they mean by summoning. I do think it means to cast a spell if you were to press me on it. Now finally, there is the magic spell Fractal Mindstorm. The casting value is equal to your target's bravery. That's pretty interesting. And if you successfully roll this spell, you roll 1 dice for each model in the unit, and on a 4-up, you inflict a mortal wound onto the unit. Now this is terrible against characters because they're usually just 1 model, so you're only ever going to get 1 dice, and they usually have high bravery. But it's just great against units, especially 1 wound ones, since it should kill on average about half of them. So, are Gaunt Summoners one of those units that are just too complicated and overpowered to throw on the table? It seems pretty powerful, being able to summon 3 units a turn if there's a realm gate on the table. But is it game-breaking, out-of-control powerful? Well, before we jump to any conclusions, I just want to point out a couple things. The ability to summon using that book of profane secrets comes with a lot of stipulations. You have to be 9 inches from a realm gate. The summoned demons have to be within 6 inches of that gate, and any unit you try to place has to be 9 inches away from the enemy. Just having a small presence at these gates is the strongest defense against this ability because it will prevent the player from placing any models. 1 model alone can lock down a gate under these limitations. Now these limits are also actually work against the summoner's strongest feature, which is its movement. As it's going to anchor him to a predictable location, you will know where all the gates are. You will know that your opponent might try to focus on those gates, and if he's focusing on those gates trying to get off these spells, or this extra boon I should say, then he's not going to be playing KG, and this gives you the best chance to pin the summoner down. Now if your opponent realizes this and understands this danger, he will probably steer clear of the gates and only try to be opportunistic about it. In those cases, the book really becomes an immediate non-issue because he's not using the gate. So that's one of the 3 spells you already don't have to really worry about if you realize that the gate is a powerful tool for him and you just have a small presence there, at least. So what about the other 2 summoning spells that he can just inherently dish out? Well, the first question that we asked is summoning too powerful, and so now I'm going to give you the answer, and that's I don't think so. When we think of the biggest boogeyman out there when it comes to summoning, it's that idea that we'll have a wizard who will summon a demon wizard, who will summon a demon wizard, who will summon a demon wizard, and so on and so forth, ad infinitum. And I think the worst offense of this is the idea of a greater demon of Tzeentch or a demon prince doing this. And well, this is a reality of the game, and if this is what you face regularly, then I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. There's no amount of advice I can give you besides bring a similar army, I guess. But let's just for a second imagine that you're playing one of those few reasonable people out there whose entire plan doesn't revolve around getting off the super chaining combo. So let's pretend we're in that scenario, and you have an opponent across the table who has a Gaunt Summoner in their army, and whenever they can, they're going to try to summon 2 units each turn. That in itself I don't think's terribly powerful. I think it's good, no doubt, it's good. I'm not going to argue against that. But I don't think it's game-breaking good, particularly if you guys decide to play a mission rather than a meat grinder attrition game. There's 2 reasons for this. First, you have to successfully cast the spell, which isn't guaranteed. A lot of things need a 6, which is better than average, but those are usually smaller units of good things, or just a unit of 10 when it comes to infantry 1 wound models. And that's another thing I want to say. That's the second thing, is that the units aren't outrageous. They're reasonably sized when you're casting these spells. Now for some of those other things that are really powerful, such as the greater demons. The bar to reach to get those on the board is really high, usually 9 or better. Some of them are even 10. If you wanted to get a bigger size unit on the table, you're going to need an 11 to get 20 1-wound demons on the board. And then there's other things. Plague drones don't come in a unit of 10 or 5, they come in a unit of 3. For whatever reason, blood crushers come in a unit of 1 unless you roll the higher amount. So I don't think there's anything insane about these things. I think the values for the casting totals are set pretty evenly, and I think the unit sizes are manageable. Now I know the go-to response after this is to say, well, that may be true on this basic level, but there are plenty abilities out there that can make these rolls practically automatic, and that's obviously definitely true. There's a lot of things. The Greater Demon of Tzeentch is probably one of those worst offenders of it. But I also want you to consider the flip side of that. There are a few things out there for each of the armies that helps defend against magic. And so it's probably something that you want to, if you're worried about it this much, to keep as a staple in your army. For example, Stormcast Eternal players, they have the Star Drake. Not only is he fast and a good tool to hunt down this flying wizard, but he also has a nifty little rule that lets you deduct a point from the casting roll before you even try to dispel it. Bloodbound armies, they have tons of models that can unbind in their army, so you can give your table a good amount of coverage to make sure there isn't a lot of area for that Gaunt Summoner to hide out in and start casting spells for demons. If you're playing Seraphon, well, you're playing the same game the demon player's playing, so you guys are pretty much evenly matched right off the bat. What it really comes down to, there's a lot of armies that have access, actually all armies have access, but a lot of armies have fluff access to things that have ranged attacks. And that's the best thing to knock this guy out of the sky with. Rather than just focusing on trying to always be in range to dispel, just shoot the guy down. He's not incredibly tough, he only has 5 wounds, which is unusual being that he is technically visually on a mount that usually gives a guy an extra 2 wounds. And he only has a 6+ save against shooting. He gets a boost to his armor save only if he's in combat against something that isn't a monster or flying, which is really a lot of things he should never be in combat with. So he's incredibly weak against things you're going to get in combat, target him with, whether it's a flyer or a monster who's fast, or in this case shooting. It's not going to be hard to whittle him down. Now the final thing I want you to remember is that he's both a mortal and a demon, and there's a variety of weapons out there and spells that increase your damage output when targeting a demon, and this is going to come into play when you go against this guy. So in the end, I don't think summoning is terribly overpowered, as long as you probably have a win condition that isn't attrition based. Obviously, if it's attrition based, then yeah, if you can summon in more models than your opponent can, then you should probably win that game. There are a lot of defensive measures you can take throughout the game against this guy. Of course, the best is probably just shooting him down, because he's a very soft target, and I think if you just focus on him with just a little bit of your flyers or shooting, he should pretty much no longer be a problem. So I guess my biggest advice to you is don't bring a foot-trudging, non-shooting, magic defense anemic army. Bring something that's balanced, and that Gaunt Summoner shouldn't be getting out of control. Target him, and he'll pretty much fold. And that will conclude this episode of AoS Close-Ups. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to comment below about what unit you'd like to see next, and thank you for watching.